The simulation chamber hummed quietly as Lee Taman sat inside the metal pod. Wires connected to his head while screens showed a virtual battlefield around him. The 18-year-old looked calm as enemy soldiers appeared on all sides. His fingers moved across the control panel with smooth precision. Outside the chamber, Captain Park So-jin watched the screens with wide eyes. She had run this test on hundreds of cadets over the years. Most failed within minutes. The smart ones lasted an hour before the computer enemies overwhelmed them. But Taemin had been fighting for 3 hours straight. "How many has he taken down now?" asked Lieutenant Choi Min-ho, another instructor who had come to see what the noise was about. 2,000 and counting, So-jin replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "The computer keeps adding more enemies, but he just keeps winning." On the main screen, they watched Taemin's virtual character move through a destroyed city. Enemy aliens fired from windows and rooftops, but somehow he always knew where they would be. He would duck behind cover just before shots rang out. He would throw grenades into buildings seconds before enemies appeared. It was like he could see the future. The simulation was supposed to test basic combat skills. New cadets were expected to survive 10 minutes and kill maybe 30 enemies. Advanced students might last 20 minutes and eliminate 50 foes. But Taemin moved through the virtual world like he owned it. "Sir, you need to see this," called Sergeant Lee Yoo-jin from her computer station. "The system is running out of enemy types." It started repeating scenarios from the beginning. Captain So-jin walked over to look at the data. The combat simulation contained over 500 different enemy types and battle situations. Taemin had encountered and defeated them all. Now the computer was cycling through them again, but even with maximum difficulty settings, nothing could stop him. "Should we end the test?" asked Min-ho. "No," So-jin said firmly. "I want to see how long he can go." Inside the chamber, Taemin felt completely focused. The virtual enemies moved in predictable patterns once you understood their programming. Each alien type had strengths and weaknesses. The big ones were strong but slow. The small ones were fast but fragile. The smart ones used cover but always followed the same tactics. He had learned all their tricks in the first hour. Now it was just a matter of staying alert and not making mistakes. His heart beat steadily. His breathing stayed calm. This felt natural to him, like he was born for combat. The colony ship New Busan traveled through space toward the Outer Rim territories. Inside its military academy, the instructors dealt with a problem they had never faced before. They had a student who was too good. "His scores are impossible," Dr. Park So-young told Captain So-jin later that evening. The military psychologist had reviewed all of Taemin's test results. "Look at these numbers. Reaction time, tactical thinking, situational awareness. He's performing at levels we've never recorded." "Maybe the equipment is broken," suggested Min-ho. "I thought so too," So-young replied. "We tested him on 5 different simulators. Same results every time. Yesterday we had him fight against computer enemies programmed with the tactics of real alien generals from the war databases. He beat them all." So-jin studied the files spread across the table. Taemin's physical scores were good but not extraordinary. He was fit and strong, but other cadets were bigger and faster. His intelligence tests showed he was smart, but again others scored higher on pure academics. "So what makes him special?" she asked. "I think it's how his mind works during combat," So-young explained. "Most people's thinking gets scattered when they're under pressure. Their heart rate goes up, their vision narrows, they make poor decisions. But Taemin seems to think more clearly when the danger increases. It's like stress makes him better instead of worse." That night, Taemin sat in his small room reading tactical manuals. His roommate Kang Dae-ho was studying for a navigation exam. "Don't you ever get tired?" Dae-ho asked. "You've been in combat simulations for 6 hours today." "Not really," Taemin replied honestly. "I feel more awake during the test than I do now." "That's weird, man. Most of us are exhausted after 1 hour in those things." Taemin thought about this. He had always felt different from other people, but he never knew why. During his childhood on Earth, he had played strategy games and won every time. In school sports, he could predict what the other team would do before they did it. His teachers said he was talented, but this felt like something more. The next morning brought news that changed everything aboard the New Busan. Commander Kim Dae-ho burst into the academy briefing room where instructors were having their daily meeting. "We've received an emergency transmission from Colonial Command," he announced. 3 human settlements in the Kepler sector are under attack by Vorthak Empire forces. The main coalition fleet is weeks away. The colonies won't last 3 days. Captain Sojin felt her stomach drop. The Vorthak were one of the most aggressive alien species in known space. Their organic ships looked like giant insects and their warriors were twice the size of humans. When they attacked a world, they rarely left survivors. "What are our orders?" she asked. "We're changing course immediately. Every available ship in the sector is being called to help. Our Marines will join the rescue operation." "Sir," Sojin said carefully, "most of our people are instructors and cadets. We're not a frontline combat unit." "I know," Daeho replied grimly, "but we're all they have." Within hours, the new Busan had altered course toward the Kepler sector. Throughout the ship, instructors prepared their students for real combat. Most of the cadets were afraid. They had trained for this moment, but simulations felt different from actual war. Taemin felt something else entirely. As he cleaned his rifle and checked his gear, a strange calm settled over him. Other students talked nervously about what they might face, but he found himself looking forward to it. That evening, he volunteered for the assault teams that would board enemy ships. Captain Sojin tried to refuse. "You're still a student," she told him. "This mission is for experienced soldiers." "With respect, Captain, my simulation scores are higher than anyone else on this ship," Taemin replied quietly. "I think I can help." Sojin looked at the young man's calm face. Every instinct told her to keep him safe aboard the new Busan, but they needed every capable fighter they could get. And his test scores really were extraordinary. "Fine," she decided, "but you stay with Lieutenant Minho's squad at all times. No heroics." As the ship jumped to hyperspace toward their first real battle, none of them knew that this decision would change the course of galactic history. The quiet young cadet who excelled at simulations was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. In distant star systems, alien intelligence networks monitored human military communications. Soon they would begin spreading new rumors about humanity's warriors. But for now, Lee Tae-min was just another cadet heading toward his first combat mission. The Prodigy's awakening was about to begin. The rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace to find hell waiting for them. Harmony Point Colony burned in the darkness of space while massive alien ships circled like predators around wounded prey. The Vorthak battlecruisers looked like enormous beetles with metal shells and glowing red engines. Smaller fighter craft swarmed between them, hunting for any human ships that tried to escape. Captain Sojin stood on the bridge of the destroyer Soul's Pride and watched the tactical display with growing horror. 12 enemy capital ships surrounded the colony. Their organic hulls pulsed with bioelectric energy as they fired devastating weapons at the orbital defense platforms. Status. "Report up," commanded Kim Dae-ho as he entered the bridge. "It's worse than we thought, sir," replied the tactical officer. "The Vorthak hit the colony 6 hours ago. Most of the defense fleet is gone. We count maybe 30,000 civilians still alive on the surface, but they won't last long." Dae-ho studied the enemy formation. The human rescue force consisted of only 4 ships against 12 alien vessels. Each Vorthak cruiser was twice the size of their largest destroyer. "This looked like suicide, sir. We're receiving a transmission from the lead enemy ship," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen filled with the image of a massive Vorthak general. General Krextal stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and a face that looked like a cross between an insect and a nightmare. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "Human vessels, you will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This world belongs to the Empire now. Your people will serve as workers in our biofactories." Commander Dae-ho stepped forward. "This is a protected human colony under Galactic Coalition authority. Withdraw your forces or face the consequences." The alien general made a sound that might have been laughter. "4 small ships against my fleet? Your species is brave but foolish. You have 10 minutes to leave before we add your wreckage to the debris field." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Orders, sir?" asked Captain Sojin. "We go in," Dae-ho said firmly. "Launch all fighters and prepare boarding teams. Those people down there are counting on us." In the ship's armory, Taemin checked his weapon one final time. The pulse rifle felt familiar in his hands despite this being his first real mission. Around him, experienced Marines made their own preparations with grim efficiency. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho approached the young cadet. "You sure you're ready for this, kid? It's not like the simulations." "I understand, sir," Taemin replied calmly, "but the basic principles should be the same." Min-ho almost smiled at the naive confidence. Stick close to me and follow orders. The Vorthak are big, mean, and they don't die easy. The Soul's pride shook as enemy fire began hitting their shields. Through the ship's speakers came the voice of their captain calling all hands to battle stations. This was it. The human ships charged toward the enemy formation at maximum speed. Vorthak fighters swarmed to meet them, their biomechanical wings cutting through space like deadly insects. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness with energy beams and missile trails. Boarding teams to assault shuttles, came the order over the intercom. Target the lead cruiser. Take out their command center. Taemin followed Lieutenant Minho's squad into the cramped shuttle bay. 12 Marines strapped themselves into the small craft that would carry them into the heart of enemy territory. The shuttle pilot, a veteran named Park Ji-ho, ran through his pre-flight checklist with practiced speed. This is going to be rough, Ji-ho warned them. That cruiser has more point defense weapons than I can count. I'll get you to their docking bay, but after that you're on your own. The shuttle launched into space just as the Soul's Pride fired its main guns at the enemy flagship. Massive energy beams struck the alien vessel's bioarmor, causing sections of its hull to glow and burn. But the Vorthak ship kept fighting, its own weapons returning devastating fire. Incoming missiles, Ji-ho announced as red warning lights filled the shuttle. Hold on. The small craft twisted and spun through a storm of enemy fire. Explosions bloomed around them as Vorthak interceptors tried to shoot them down. Taemin felt his stomach lurch with each sudden turn, but his mind stayed focused on what lay ahead. They reached the enemy cruiser's docking bay just as another shuttle exploded nearby. Ji-ho brought their craft down hard on the alien ship's landing platform, the hull scraping against biometallic surfaces designed for insect-like vessels. Go, 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 shouted Minho as the shuttle doors opened. The Marines rushed out into an alien environment that looked like the inside of a giant hive. The walls curved organically and pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The air smelled of chemicals and decay. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the chittering sounds of Vorthak warriors responding to the invasion. Remember the layout from the briefing, Minho told his squad as they moved deeper into the ship. Command center is 3 levels up through the central corridor. Watch for... His words were cut off as the first group of enemy soldiers appeared around a corner. 6 Vorthak warriors charged toward them, each one carrying weapons that looked like they had grown from living tissue. Their forearms moved in perfect coordination as they fired bioenergy bolts at the human intruders. The experienced Marines took cover and returned fire with disciplined volleys. Their pulse rifles sent bright energy beams down the corridor, striking alien carapaces and drawing shrieks of pain and anger. But the Vorthak kept coming, using their superior size and strength to push forward. They're trying to flank us, called Sergeant Lee Yu-jin from the squad's right side. More coming from the side passages. This was the moment when everything changed. While the veteran Marines fought bravely according to their training, Taemin's mind shifted into a different state entirely. The chaos of combat became clear patterns of movement and opportunity. Enemy positions revealed themselves like pieces on a game board. Without conscious thought, he moved away from the main group. The other Marines were focused on the frontal assault and didn't notice as their youngest member slipped into a maintenance tunnel that ran parallel to the main corridor. Taemin emerged behind the flanking group just as they prepared to attack his squad from the side. 3 Vorthak warriors stood with their backs to him, their attention fixed on the firefight ahead. In the simulations, he had learned that surprise was worth more than superior firepower. His first shot took down the nearest alien before it knew he was there. The second warrior started to turn, but Taemin had already moved, using a support pillar as cover while he lined up his next target. His third shot found the gap in the creature's bioarmor just as it began to raise its weapon. The final Vorthak in the group spun to face him with all 4 arms bringing weapons to bear. In the split second before it could fire, Taemin noticed something the creature didn't. A damaged power conduit ran along the wall directly above its position. One precise shot at the conduit sent sparking bioelectric energy cascading down onto the alien warrior. It screamed and collapsed as its own ship's power systems turned against it. Where did he go? Minho shouted over the noise of battle, suddenly realizing their youngest member had vanished. Behind you, sir, came Taemin's calm voice as he appeared from the side passage. Around him lay the bodies of 3 Vorthak warriors that had been about to ambush the squad. The experienced Marine stared in shock. Their 18-year-old cadet had just eliminated 3 enemy soldiers in under 30 seconds, using tactics none of them had even considered. How did you know they were there? Asked Yujin. I heard them moving through the walls, Taiman replied simply. The ship's structure carries sound in predictable patterns. As they continued deeper into the enemy vessel, word of the boarding action reached General Krextal in the command center. His tactical officers reported that human intruders had penetrated the ship, but the details made no sense. One of them appears to be moving independently, reported his chief intelligence officer. Our warriors are reporting encounters with a human who fights like nothing in our databases. Impossible, Krextal growled. Humans are physically inferior. Their young especially are weak and inexperienced. But as more reports came in, a disturbing pattern emerged. Wherever this mysterious human appeared, Vorthak forces found themselves outmaneuvered and defeated. The creatures seemed to anticipate their tactics before they implemented them. Back in the ship's corridors, Lieutenant Minho was beginning to understand that everything he thought he knew about combat was being rewritten by an 18-year-old cadet who moved through enemy territory like he had been. Born for war, the legend of the Ghost of Harmony Point was about to begin. 6 months after the battle at Harmony Point, Taiman sat in the briefing room of the military station Deep Space 7. The 19-year-old wore the uniform of Special Operations Division Omega, though his rank badges showed he was still officially just a corporal. Around the table sat officers who outranked him by decades, but they all listened when he spoke. Colonel Yoon Hai-jin studied the holographic display showing their next target. Titan's Gate was a mining colony that produced rare metals needed for ship construction. 3 weeks ago, a combined force of Kelthari and Nexus raiders had captured the world and enslaved its population. Intelligence reports suggest they have over 5,000 fighters defending the main settlement, Heijin explained to the assembled team. Our force consists of 200 Marines and support personnel. Major Shin Tai-ho, the unit's tactical coordinator, shook his head. Those odds are impossible even for us. We should wait for reinforcements. The miners don't have time, replied Captain Kim Jae-woo, who commanded the assault teams. Every day we delay means more civilians die in their work camps. All eyes turned to the youngest person in the room. Despite his low official rank, everyone knew that Taiman's tactical assessments had never been wrong. In 6 months of operations, his strategies had achieved impossible victories with minimal casualties. What do you think? Colonel Hai-jin asked. Taiman stood and moved to the holographic display. His fingers traced patterns in the air, highlighting key positions around the colony. The numbers don't matter if we don't fight them all at once. Look at their defensive positions. He pointed to several locations on the map. They've concentrated their forces around the mining equipment and administrative centers. But they've left the power generation facility lightly defended. If we hit that first and create a blackout, their communications will fail and their heavy weapons will go offline. Then what? Asked Taeho. We divide into small teams and hit multiple targets simultaneously. In the dark, their superior numbers become a disadvantage. Large groups will have trouble coordinating. Small human teams can move faster and strike harder. Sergeant Lee Yu-jin, now permanently assigned to Taiman's squad, had seen this pattern before. The young corporal didn't just plan battles, he understood them on some deeper level. What about their orbital defenses? Leave those to me, Taiman said calmly. I'll take a small team to their command ship. Once we control their fleet, the ground battle becomes much easier. 3 days later, the assault began exactly as Taiman had predicted. The first explosion took out Titan's Gate's main power grid, plunging the colony into darkness. Confused alien voices filled their communication channels as defenders tried to understand what was happening. Taiman's team had already infiltrated the enemy command ship hours before the attack began. Moving through the vessel's corridors like shadows, they eliminated guards without raising alarms. By the time the shooting started on the planet below, he was standing in the alien admiral's command center. Admiral Vexkoth of the Kelthari Confederacy turned from his tactical displays to find a young human pointing a rifle at his head. Around the bridge, his officers lay unconscious or dead. Somehow, this impossible creature had neutralized an entire ship's crew without anyone noticing. How? Was all the alien admiral could manage to say. You posted guards at every entrance but forgot about the maintenance shafts, Taiman explained simply. Your ventilation system connects every deck. I've been moving through your ship for 6 hours. On the planet's surface, the liberation proceeded with mechanical precision. Each target fell exactly when Taiman had predicted. His teams struck like ghosts, appearing from unexpected directions and vanishing before the enemy could respond effectively. Lieutenant Park Ji-ho, now commanding one of the assault groups, watched in amazement as enemy positions collapsed according to a timeline that seemed written in advance. Bravo team reporting objective secured. Moving to Phase 3. Copy that, came the calm reply from their coordinator. Charlie team, you should have incoming reinforcements from the east in 90 seconds. There's a drainage tunnel 50 meters to your left. Ji-ho shook his head in wonder. Somehow their young tactical genius was tracking dozens of variables across an entire battlefield while simultaneously conducting his own mission aboard an enemy warship. Dr. Park So-young observed the operation from the command ship, Seoul's Pride. As the military psychologist assigned to study Special Operations Division Omega, she documented every aspect of their performance. Her reports would reshape how human military leadership understood warfare itself. Subject continues to demonstrate unprecedented battlefield awareness. She spoke into her recorder. Current theory suggests neurological adaptations that allow processing of combat information at superhuman levels. Recommend expanded psychological evaluation and potential genetic analysis. The battle for Titan's Gate ended 12 hours ahead of schedule with 0 human casualties. Over 3,000 alien defenders surrendered, rather than continue fighting against an enemy they couldn't understand. The mining colony's civilians emerged from their prison camps to find their captors defeated by a force 1/25 their size. News of the victory spread quickly through both human and alien military networks. Intelligence officers from a dozen species filed reports about the mysterious human warrior who could predict enemy movements and counter strategies before they were fully implemented. On the bridge of a Nexus collective dreadnought, Fleet Commander Zalthun reviewed captured footage from the Titan's Gate operation. The recording showed impossible tactical maneuvers executed with perfect timing. No single individual should be able to coordinate such complex operations while simultaneously conducting independent missions. Increase surveillance on human military activities, he ordered his intelligence chief. This one individual represents a strategic threat to all our operations in this sector. Similar orders went out from Vorthak Empire headquarters and Kelthari Confederacy command centers. The galaxy's military establishments had identified a new type of threat, one that couldn't be countered with superior numbers or advanced technology. But for Tai Min, the operation had been routine. As he sat in his quarters writing his after-action report, he felt no particular satisfaction in the victory. The tactical problems had been straightforward once you understood the enemy's limitations and exploited their predictable responses. What he didn't realize was that military psychologists across known space were now studying his methods and developing new theories about human warfare potential. Dr. So-young's classified report suggested that certain humans might possess evolutionary adaptations, specifically designed for combat effectiveness. The implications were staggering. If humanity could produce more warriors like Taemin, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift permanently. But first, they needed to understand what made him so different from every other soldier in human history. 3 weeks after Titan's Gate, the team received orders for their next mission. A Vorthak supply depot in the neutral zone was coordinating attacks on human shipping lanes. Intelligence estimated it was defended by over 10,000 enemy troops and surrounded by minefields that would destroy any approaching fleet. Sounds like fun, said Sergeant Yu Jin as she reviewed the briefing. Materials, standard procedure, Taemin replied, already studying the tactical displays. We'll need to approach from the asteroid field on the system's edge. Their sensors won't detect us until we're inside their defensive perimeter. Colonel Heijin listened to his youngest team member outline a strategy that would have been rejected as impossible by any conventional military planner. But after 6 months of victories, he had learned to trust the strange genius who fought like war itself had been created specifically for him. The legend was growing with each mission, but the man behind it remained focused on the next battle, the next tactical puzzle to solve. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, enemies were learning to fear the mention of human forces, never knowing their terror had a name and a face that looked barely old enough to vote. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers. It was one young man who understood combat better than species that had been waging war for millions of years. The emergency meeting took place on the neutral station crossroads, hidden deep in unexplored space. Representatives from 3 of the galaxy's most powerful military forces sat around a circular table, their mutual hatred temporarily set aside for a common purpose. Admiral Vextor of the Kelthari Confederacy spoke first. The human cannot be allowed to continue. In 6 months, he has destroyed our operations in 12 star systems. Our warriors refuse to fight when they hear he might be present. General Krextal of the Vorthak Empire nodded his massive head in agreement. My intelligence reports show similar patterns. This one human has caused more damage than entire enemy fleets. Our soldiers call him the Death Shadow. Supreme Commander Nixara of the Nexus Collective studied the data files spread before them. We have analyzed every recorded engagement. He anticipates our tactics before we implement them. Our best strategists cannot predict his movements. It is as if he sees patterns that do not exist. Then we must create new patterns, Vextor declared. Patterns he has never encountered before. I propose we combine our forces for one decisive strike. The plan they developed was simple but overwhelming. Intelligence networks from all 3 species would track the human's movements and predict his next target. Then they would set a trap so massive and unexpected that even his impossible abilities couldn't save him. 2 weeks later, their opportunity came. Human forces were planning a reconnaissance mission to the abandoned research station, Prometheus 7. The facility had been evacuated during the war and left drifting in empty space. It would be perfect for an ambush. Captain Kim Jae-woo commanded the small task force aboard the Corvette Bright Star. Their mission seemed routine. Investigate reports of unusual energy readings from the old station and determine if it posed any security threats. The crew consisted of 30 personnel, including Taemin and his usual squad. Dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Taemin sat in the ship's small briefing room, reviewing what little information they had about Prometheus 7. Something about this mission felt different. The energy readings mentioned in their orders didn't match any known technology patterns. It was almost too convenient that they would be sent to investigate. Something wrong? Asked Sergeant Yujin, noticing his thoughtful expression. Maybe, he replied quietly. This feels like a setup, but I can't determine the exact threat. Lieutenant Park Ji-ho, now serving as the ship's tactical officer, looked up from his console. Sensors are picking up the station. It's exactly where it should be. No other ships detected. That's what worries me, Taemin muttered. The Bright Star approached Prometheus 7 slowly, scanning for any signs of activity. The research station was a massive structure, nearly 2 kilometers long with multiple docking bays and laboratory sections. It had been one of humanity's most advanced facilities before the war forced its abandonment. Sir, I'm getting some strange readings, reported the sensor operator. There are power signatures inside the station, but they're very faint. Could be automated systems still running. Captain Jae-woo studied the tactical display. Standard procedure. We dock and send in a team to investigate. Taemin, I want your squad to take point. Yes, sir, he replied, though the feeling of wrongness continued to grow stronger. What none of them could see was the massive fleet hidden in the asteroid field beyond the station. Over 200 ships from 3 different species waited in perfect silence, their engines shut down, and their hulls masked by stealth technology. It was the largest combined alien force ever assembled for a single operation. Admiral Vextor watched the human corvette through his ship's sensors. The target has taken the bait. All units maintain position until they are aboard the station. Are you certain this will work? Asked General Krextal over the communication channel. We have seen this human escape from impossible situations before. Not this time, Vextor replied confidently. We have studied every battle, analyzed every tactic. This trap accounts for all his known capabilities. He cannot anticipate what he has never encountered. Aboard the Bright Star, Taemin led his squad through the docking procedures. The research station's main bay was large enough to accommodate their corvette, though the automated systems that guided them in felt sluggish and unreliable. Atmosphere is breathable but stale, reported Corporal Ryu Sung-min as they prepared to disembark. No immediate signs of life. The squad moved into the station's corridors with weapons ready. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls while their footsteps echoed in the empty passages. Everything appeared normal for an abandoned facility, but Taemin's instincts screamed warnings. Teams 2 and 3, secure the main computer core, he ordered over the comm system. Team 1 with me to the power generation section. Something is keeping this place running. What he found in the power section confirmed his worst fears. The facility's fusion reactors were operating at minimal levels, just enough to maintain basic life support and run essential systems. But the power distribution patterns were all wrong. Too much energy was being routed to the communication arrays and sensor networks. This place is being used as a monitoring station. He realized, someone has been watching this area of space. That was when the trap was sprung. Every screen in the facility suddenly activated, showing the bridge of an alien warship. Admiral Vextor's face appeared on the main display, his expression showing what might have been satisfaction. Human warrior, your reputation precedes you. I am Admiral Vextor of the Kelthari Confederacy. For months you have been a thorn in our operations. Today, that ends. The station's external sensors activated, revealing the massive fleet that surrounded them. Hundreds of alien ships powered up their weapon systems and moved into attack positions. The small human corvette was completely surrounded by overwhelming force. As you can see, escape is impossible, Vextor continued. We have brought the finest warriors from 3 species. Our combined fleet represents more firepower than your entire sector defense force. Surrender now and your death will be quick. In the Bright Stars Bridge, Captain Jae-woo stared at the tactical display in horror. Red contacts filled the screen as enemy ships revealed themselves. His 30-person crew faced a force of over 50,000 aliens. Sir, they're jamming our communications, reported the communications officer. I can't reach command. Orders? Asked Lieutenant Ji-ho, though his voice showed he already knew their situation was hopeless. On the station, Tai-min studied the enemy fleet positions through the facility's sensor network. His squad waited for instructions, their faces grim but determined. They had followed him through impossible battles before, but this looked like the end. Sarge? Asked Yujin quietly. What's the plan? Tai-min was silent for several long moments, his mind processing tactical information at superhuman speed. The enemy had studied his previous engagements and prepared countermeasures for his usual strategies. They had overwhelming numbers, superior positioning, and complete control of the battlefield. Any normal tactical analysis would conclude the situation was hopeless. But as he studied the enemy formations, Tai-min began to see something the aliens had missed. Their very preparation to counter his known methods had created new vulnerabilities. They made one mistake, he said finally. What's that? Asked Ryu Sung-min. They brought too many ships, Tai-min replied with the faintest hint of a smile. Large formations are hard to coordinate, and this station has systems they don't know about. He moved to the facility's main computer terminal and began accessing files that had been classified since the war. Prometheus 7 hadn't just been a research station. It had been testing experimental weapons before its evacuation. What are you doing? Vextor demanded over the communication system. You cannot fight an entire fleet. Watch me, Tai-min replied calmly as he activated systems that hadn't been used in years. Deep in the station's core, ancient machinery began to power up. The aliens had expected to face a trapped enemy with limited options. What they hadn't anticipated was that their prey might turn the trap itself into a weapon. The battle that would become known as the Prometheus Massacre was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn that cornering humanity's greatest warrior only made him more dangerous. The message arrived during a routine briefing aboard the command ship New Horizon. Major Shin Tae-ho was reviewing operational reports when the emergency transmission cut through all other communications. The words on the screen made his blood run cold. Verdant Fields colony under attack. Civilian casualties mounting. No rescue forces available. Across the briefing room, Tai-min stopped moving entirely. His face showed no expression, but everyone who knew him recognized the sudden stillness as dangerous. The 20-year-old warrior who had terrified alien armies was processing information that changed everything. Verdant Fields is an agricultural world, Captain Kim Jae-woo said quietly. No military installations, no strategic value. Just farmers and teachers. My sister teaches there, Tai-min said in a voice that carried no emotion at all. Primary school. She works with children. The room fell silent. Every officer present understood what those words meant. The young man who fought with cold precision was about to become something far worse. Lieutenant Park Ji-ho pulled up the tactical data. Sir, the attacking force consists of ships from the Liberation Front. Intelligence suggests they're targeting civilian populations to draw our military forces into disadvantageous engagements. How long until the nearest fleet can respond? Asked Colonel Yoon Hae-jin over the communication link. 18 hours minimum, Taeho replied. The colony won't last that long. Then we go now, Taemin said. His voice remained calm, but something in his eyes made even veteran soldiers uncomfortable. Captain Jae-woo, I need your ship. Son, we're one destroyer against an invasion fleet, Jae-woo protested. Even you can't fight those odds. Watch me. The destroyer Incheon Rising broke from the main fleet and jumped to hyperspace before command could issue orders to stop them. Aboard the ship, crew members prepared for combat while their tactical officer studied enemy formations with an intensity that bordered on frightening. Sergeant Lee Yu-jin had served with Taemin for over a year. She had watched him defeat impossible odds through brilliant tactical planning and perfect execution, but this felt different. The young man who usually treated combat like solving puzzles now approached it with focused hatred. What's the plan? She asked as they prepared their equipment. Complete elimination, Taemin replied simply. Every ship. Every soldier. I want the Liberation Front to cease existing. When the Incheon Rising arrived at Verdant Fields, the colony was already burning. 3 large cruisers orbited the planet while smaller ships ferried captured civilians to holding cells. On the surface, alien soldiers moved through settlements that had never known violence. Sir, they're detecting us, reported the tactical officer. The enemy flagship is hailing us. Put it through, ordered Captain Jae-woo. The screen showed Commander Zexthak of the Liberation Front, a scarred veteran who commanded through fear and brutality. 1 human ship? You've come to die for these farmers. No, Taemin replied before anyone else could speak. I've come to teach you why attacking civilians was the worst decision you ever made. Zexthak laughed. Big words from one small vessel. My fleet will tear you apart. Your fleet is already dead, Taemin said calmly. You just don't know it yet. What followed became known in military records as the Verdant Fields Massacre, though the name didn't accurately describe what happened. Massacres were quick and brutal. What Taemin did to the Liberation Front was slow, methodical, and designed to create maximum psychological damage. The Incheon Rising didn't charge into battle. Instead, it moved to the system's outer edge and began launching small attack drones. Each drone carried minimal weapons but sophisticated jamming equipment that disrupted enemy communications and sensor networks. What is he doing? Asked Lieutenant Choi Min-ho, watching from the main fleet as they raced to provide support. Isolating them, replied Admiral Park So-jin, who had studied Taemin's methods extensively. He's making sure they can't coordinate their defense or call for help. Now they're not a fleet, just individual ships that can't talk to each other. The first enemy vessel exploded 12 minutes after the battle began, not from overwhelming firepower, but from a precisely placed shot that triggered a chain reaction in its power core. The crew had time to realize what was happening, but not enough time to escape. The second ship died 15 minutes later when its life support systems were systematically disabled. The crew survived long enough to send distress signals that no one could answer before they suffocated in the cold vacuum of space. Sir, this is taking too long, protested one of the Incheon Rising's officers. We should just destroy them quickly and rescue the civilians. No, Taemin said without looking away from his displays. Every alien species monitoring this system needs to understand what happens when they target our families. Commander Zexthak watched his fleet disintegrate with growing horror. His ships couldn't coordinate, couldn't retreat, couldn't even communicate their situation to other Liberation Front forces. They were being hunted by something that seemed to know exactly where they would be and what they would do. All ships focus fire on the human destroyer, he ordered desperately. Concentrate everything we have. But the Incheon Rising wasn't where his sensors said it should be. Taemin had calculated the exact timing of their targeting systems and moved his ship to a position that made their weapons useless. Every shot his enemies fired hit empty space while his carefully placed attacks continued dismantling their fleet piece by piece. Dr. Park, So-young, monitored the battle from her research station aboard the New Horizon. Her psychological analysis equipment recorded everything, and what she saw disturbed her deeply. Taemin wasn't just winning the battle, he was conducting a demonstration for anyone watching. Subject has transitioned from tactical efficiency to psychological warfare, she recorded in her notes. Each enemy ship destruction is calculated to maximize terror in survivors. This represents fundamental change in combat methodology. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every Liberation Front ship in the system was destroyed or disabled. But Taemin hadn't killed all the crews. He had deliberately left survivors on several vessels, ensuring they would live long enough to be rescued and tell others what they had experienced. The civilians of Verdant Fields were freed with minimal casualties. Among them was Lee Yuri, who found her brother waiting at the landing zone. She barely recognized him. The quiet young man who had left home to join the military had been replaced by something harder and colder. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied, studying his face. "But are you?" Taemin didn't answer. He was already reviewing reports about other Liberation Front operations across the sector. The organization that had attacked Verdant Fields had bases on 17 different worlds. He intended to visit every single one. What followed over the next 3 months became the stuff of nightmares for alien military forces throughout the galaxy. Taemin didn't just defeat the Liberation Front. He systematically destroyed every aspect of their organization with a thoroughness that terrified observers. News correspondent Song Mi-jin tried to document the campaign, but found her reports heavily censored. Human forces are conducting operations that appear designed to send messages rather than achieve quick victories, she wrote. The psychological impact on enemy forces is severe and lasting. Admiral Kim Dae-ho received reports from intelligence networks across known space. 3 different alien species had developed new protocols, specifically for avoiding encounters with human forces. Military psychologists treating enemy prisoners described a condition they called ghost syndrome, where veterans refused to fight if they suspected Taemin might be present. "We created something we don't fully understand," Dae-ho told the assembled military leadership. "His tactical brilliance remains unmatched, but he's no longer fighting to protect. He's fighting to punish." Colonel Yoon Hae-jin reviewed casualty statistics with growing concern. Human losses are at all-time lows. Mission success rates are perfect. But look at these psychological evaluation reports from our own troops. They're starting to fear him almost as much as the enemy does. The transformation was complete when the Kelthari Confederacy formally requested peace negotiations. The proud warrior species that had fought humanity for decades was now asking for protection from their own aggressive neighbors, willing to accept human terms rather than risk facing Taemin in combat. In his quarters aboard the Incheon Rising, Taemin studied maps of enemy territory and calculated optimal attack patterns. The young man who once fought to save lives now existed solely to demonstrate why attacking humanity was a fatal mistake. His tactical genius had become a weapon of terror more effective than any conventional military force. Sergeant Yu Jin found him there late one night. "Sir, the Liberation Front has surrendered unconditionally. Their remaining forces are requesting asylum rather than continue fighting." "Good," Taemin replied without emotion. "Make sure every species knows why they surrendered. I want the galaxy to understand the consequences of targeting civilians." The nightmare had been unleashed and the galaxy would never forget. 2 years had passed since the galaxy learned to fear humanity's greatest warrior. The office of General Bae Sung-ho, commander of all human special operations, overlooked the sprawling military complex on Earth's moon. Through his window, he could see the new training facilities where former enemies now learned alongside human soldiers. "The irony is remarkable," he told his visitor, Ambassador Chen Wei-ming of the Galactic Coalition. 3 years ago, we were the underdogs fighting for survival. Now alien governments send their best officers here to study our tactics." Ambassador Chen studied the reports spread across the general's desk. "The transformation has been unprecedented. Border conflicts down 90%. Piracy nearly eliminated. 6 major species have requested protection treaties with humanity. All because they're terrified of one young man," Bae replied grimly. The success had come at a cost that kept military psychologists awake at night. Dr. Kim So-jin had submitted her final evaluation report on Taemin 3 months earlier. Her conclusion was disturbing. Humanity's greatest weapon was no longer fully human in any emotional sense. Subject shows complete disconnect from normal social relationships, she had written. Combat has become his only meaningful interaction with the universe. Recommend immediate removal from active duty for intensive rehabilitation. The recommendation had been ignored. Not because leadership didn't care about Taemin's psychological health, but because removing him from service might signal weakness to enemies who were only kept in check by fear of his capabilities. That delicate balance was about to be shattered by an enemy that didn't understand fear. The first reports came from deep space, monitoring stations along humanity's outer borders. Massive objects were moving through previously unexplored regions, following trajectories that would bring them into contact with inhabited systems within months. "They're not ships in any conventional sense," explained Dr. Yoon Hae-jin, now serving as the military's chief science advisor. "These appeared to be artificial constructs, each one the size of a small moon. Our analysis suggests they're at least 1,000,000 years old." General Bay studied the sensor data with growing concern. "Any communication attempts?" "None. They don't respond to any signals on any frequency. But everywhere they go, they leave nothing behind. Complete sterilization of all biological matter." The enemy had no name and no apparent motivation beyond the systematic elimination of younger species from the galaxy. Intelligence analysts called them the Void Builders, though no one knew if they had actually built anything or simply destroyed everything they encountered. Captain Ryu Sung-min, now commanding the destroyer Soul's Ghost, received orders to investigate the first incursion into human space. His crew included Taemin, though the young man's official rank remained deliberately vague. After years of impossible victories, traditional military hierarchy seemed irrelevant. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported Lieutenant Park Ji-ho from the navigation station. "Sir, are you sure we should get this close? The sensor readings are unlike anything in our databases." "That's why we need to see it firsthand," Seung-min replied. "Tactical assessment?" All eyes turned to Tae-min, who stood studying the tactical displays with an expression of focused concentration. For the first time in months, he appeared genuinely challenged by a strategic problem. "I don't understand their operational patterns," he admitted. "Every enemy we've faced has had predictable motivations. Territory, resources, survival, revenge. These things just destroy everything and move on. There's no tactical framework to exploit." The Void Builder construct came into visual range an hour later. It looked like a mechanical asteroid covered in crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. Smaller objects moved around its surface, each one the size of a battleship, but clearly automated rather than crude. "Any signs of biological life?" asked Chung-min. "Negative," replied the sensor operator. "Whatever these things are, they're completely artificial. But sir, the energy readings are off the charts. This thing has more power than our entire home fleet." That was when the construct noticed them. Without warning, dozens of automated defenders detached from its surface and moved toward the human ship. They didn't communicate, didn't demand surrender, didn't show any interest in anything except elimination. "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Chung-min as energy beams began filling the space around them. "Return fire." Their weapons struck the attacking craft with pinpoint accuracy, but the results were disappointing. The alien machines absorbed damage that would have destroyed conventional ships and kept attacking with mechanical persistence. "Sir, our weapons are barely affecting them," reported the tactical officer. "Whatever they're made of, it's not responding to our standard armaments." This was the moment when everyone realized they faced something unprecedented. For 2 years, Taemin's tactical genius had made human forces seem invincible, but the Void Builders didn't follow any tactical patterns. They couldn't be intimidated, couldn't be outmaneuvered, and couldn't be psychologically manipulated. "Emergency jump to hyperspace," Chung-min ordered as more enemies approached. "Get us out of here." The Soul's Ghost escaped, but barely. For the first time since Harmony Point, Taemin had encountered an enemy he couldn't defeat through superior tactics. The implications terrified everyone who understood what it meant. Within days, reports arrived from across human space. Void Builder constructs had appeared in 17 different systems. Some targeted major population centers. Others seemed to focus on military installations. All of them left complete devastation behind. The emergency session of human military leadership took place in the deepest bunkers beneath Earth's surface. Every major commander attended, along with representatives from allied alien species who had learned to depend on human protection. "Conventional warfare is proving ineffective," reported Admiral Kim Dae-ho. "We've engaged them in 6 major battles. Every time we suffer heavy casualties while they show minimal damage. Our tactical advantages mean nothing against enemies that don't think like living creatures." "What does our tactical specialist recommend?" asked General Bay, though he already suspected the answer. Tae-min stood at the center of the briefing room, surrounded by officers who had learned to trust his impossible strategies. For the first time in years, he looked uncertain. "I need to study them more closely," he said finally. "Their patterns aren't random, but they're not tactical either. It's like they're following programming from a completely different type of intelligence." "How close?" Bay asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. "Close enough to board one of their constructs. I need to see how they think, how they process information, how they make decisions. Only then can I find a way to stop them." The mission that followed would be remembered as humanity's most desperate gamble. A single ship, carrying the galaxy's greatest tactical mind, would attempt to infiltrate an enemy construct and discover its weaknesses before the Void Builders could sterilize every inhabited world in known space. But this time, Taemin wouldn't be fighting for victory or even survival. He would be fighting to prove that intelligence and adaptability could triumph over mechanical perfection. The young man who had terrified entire species would face his greatest challenge in trying to save them all. As the Soul's Ghost prepared for its final mission, every sentient being in the galaxy waited to see if humanity's nightmare could become their salvation. The warrior who had learned to win through fear was about to discover that some battles could only be won through sacrifice. The legend was complete, but the man behind it was about to write the most important chapter of his story. 5 years after the Void Builder War ended, Colonel Lee Taemin walked through the corridors of the Galactic Military Academy on Terra Nova. His footsteps echoed softly in the wide hallways where cadets from dozens of species studied together. The young man who had once terrified entire fleets now carried himself with quiet dignity, though his eyes still held the sharp awareness that had made him legendary. "Professor Lee," called out Cadet Vexinal, a young Kelthari whose grandfather had once fled from Taemin's forces. "Could you review my tactical analysis for tomorrow's exercise?" "Of course," Taemin replied, accepting the datapad. "But remember, tactics are only tools. Understanding your enemy's motivations is more important than predicting their movements." The academy was his idea, built from the wreckage of the old conflicts. After the Void Builder threat had been eliminated, the galaxy faced a choice: return to the old patterns of mistrust and warfare, or learn to work together against future threats. Taemin had chosen to build something new. Admiral Park So-jin, now director of the academy, found him in his office that evening reviewing student assignments. The walls were covered with tactical displays and historical battle analyses, but also with photos of graduating classes that included former enemies learning to fight as allies. "The council meeting went well," she reported. "3 more species have requested to join the Defensive Alliance. Apparently word is spreading about our teaching methods." "Good," Taemin said without looking up from his work. "The next generation needs to understand that victory through fear only works until you meet something that cannot be frightened." The Void Builder War had taught him that lesson in the hardest way possible. His infiltration of their construct had revealed the truth. They were automated weapons left behind by a dead civilization, programmed to eliminate any species that might threaten their creator's memory. They couldn't be reasoned with, intimidated, or outmaneuvered because they weren't truly alive. The solution had required something Taemin had almost forgotten how to do: work with others. The final battle hadn't been won by a single tactical genius, but by coordinated efforts from every species in the galaxy. His role had been to teach them how to think like he did, to see patterns and possibilities that conventional military training missed. "The new instructor candidates look promising," So-jin continued. "Captain Kim Jae-woo has done excellent work with the human students, and Major Zalthek brings interesting perspectives from Nexus combat doctrine." "What about the project status?" Taemin asked. "Dr. Kim So-jin's psychological research is showing remarkable results. We're identifying potential tactical prodigies in multiple species. None quite like you, but several who show similar pattern recognition abilities." The research had been controversial at first. Many questioned whether it was wise to deliberately create more warriors like Taemin, but the galaxy had learned that exceptional threats required exceptional defenders. The key was ensuring that future tactical geniuses understood the responsibility that came with their abilities. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Taemin activated his communication screen to find the familiar face of his sister, Lee Yuri, calling from her new position as Civilian Liaison Coordinator. "How are the students treating their famous professor?" she asked with a smile. They're good kids, he replied. Most of them don't even know about the old stories. To them, I'm just another instructor who assigns too much homework. That's probably for the best. Though I heard Cadet Ryu Sung-jin has been asking questions about family military history. Taemin smiled slightly. Seung-jin was the nephew of his former commander, Captain Ryu Seung-min, who had died in the final Void Builder battle. The young man showed remarkable tactical instincts but lacked the cold detachment that had made Taemin so feared. He wants to understand how to protect people without becoming what I was, Taemin said. I'm trying to teach him that strength comes from knowing when not to fight. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Both Taemin and Admiral So-jin received the same message simultaneously. Unknown vessels had been detected at the edge of the Centauri system, displaying technology signatures that didn't match any known species. Not again? So-jin muttered as she reviewed the preliminary reports. Different, Taemin said after studying the data. These ships are responding to our communications. They're trying to establish contact rather than attacking immediately. Within hours, the mystery was solved. The newcomers were refugees from a distant galaxy, fleeing some catastrophe that had destroyed their home stars. They possessed advanced technology but traveled in damaged ships, carrying millions of survivors with nowhere else to go. They're requesting permission to settle in uninhabited systems, reported Captain Kim Jae-woo during the emergency briefing. Their technology could be valuable, but integrating such a large population will be challenging. What's your assessment? Admiral So-jin asked Taemin. He studied the intelligence reports about the refugees' capabilities and needs. These weren't invaders or conquerors, but people seeking safety after losing everything they had ever known. The tactical considerations were complex, but the moral choice seemed clear. We help them, he said simply, but carefully. Large refugee populations can create instability, if not properly managed. We need integration programs, cultural exchange initiatives, and careful monitoring of their settlement choices. No security concerns? Some, but manageable. Their technology suggests they're peaceful by nature. The real challenge will be convincing our existing allies that we can handle this without disrupting the current balance. The refugee crisis became Taemin's next great project. Instead of planning battles, he designed integration programs. Instead of studying enemy weaknesses, he analyzed cultural compatibility matrices. The skills that had made him a devastating warrior proved surprisingly useful for peaceful purposes. 6 months later, the first mixed settlements were thriving. Refugee technology had improved agricultural yields on marginal worlds. Their medical knowledge had advanced treatment options for several species. Most importantly, their presence had given the galaxy's younger generation something to work toward together. You know, Admiral So-jin said as they watched cadets from 7 different species working together on a joint training exercise. I never thought I'd see the day when your greatest victory would be a battle you prevented rather than one you won. Taemin watched a young human cadet explaining tactical concepts to a group that included former enemies and refugee children. The students listened intently, not because they feared the instructor's reputation, but because they wanted to learn how to protect the peace they had inherited. The ghost stories will fade eventually, he said quietly. In 50 years, new cadets will study the old battles as history rather than legend. That's probably for the best. You don't miss it? The combat, the tactical challenges, the reputation? Taemin considered the question seriously. There had been a time when combat was the only thing that made him feel truly alive, when solving tactical puzzles was his only connection to the world around him. But teaching had given him something different, the satisfaction of building rather than destroying. I miss the clarity, he admitted. Combat was simple. There were objectives to achieve and enemies to defeat. This is more complicated, but it's also more important. Any species can produce warriors. Building teachers who can pass on wisdom rather than just technique requires something different. As evening approached, Taemin made his final rounds through the academy grounds. In one building, advanced students practiced zero-gravity combat techniques. In another, junior cadets studied diplomatic protocols for first contact situations. The library hummed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages as mixed groups worked on joint research projects. This was his true legacy, not the fear he had once inspired, but the hope he had helped create. The young man who had been called the galaxy's nightmare had become its teacher, showing future generations that strength meant protecting others rather than defeating them. Walking back to his quarters, Taman passed a memorial wall listing those who had died in the old conflicts. His own name appeared on several battle honors. But what made him proudest were the smaller plaques recognizing graduates who had gone on to prevent wars rather than win them. The ghost of Harmony Point had finally found peace, not in victory, but in the knowledge that the galaxy's future would be shaped by wisdom rather than fear.